All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a massive, almost painful experience that I know we've all had, that absolute paralysis of waiting for the perfect moment. I mean, we've all been there, right? Staring down a major decision, maybe a huge new project or a massive life change, and you're just frozen, totally stuck because you feel like you don't have enough clarity yet. We trick ourselves into thinking, hey, if I just wait a little bit longer, the fog is miraculously going to lift. But today, we're throwing that out the window. We're looking at a completely different framework for how understanding actually works. We're looking at action as the architect of clarity.
So ask yourself this. Have you been waiting for clarity that just hasn't arrived? Seriously, take a slow breath and answer that honestly. Are you currently caught in that trap, waiting for a magical sign, that perfect feeling of absolute readiness, or some sudden burst of total certainty that just, hasn't shown up yet? It is unbelievably frustrating to feel trapped in this endless cycle of overthinking. You feel literally stuck in the mud. But what if the waiting itself is actually the problem? What if the very thing you're doing to get ready is the exact thing keeping you frozen in place?
Well, to answer that, we've got to look back at a really profound realization from the ancient Sufi masters. Their teaching was aimed squarely at the seeker, the person waiting for full clarity before taking a single step. And their observation was wonderfully simple. Clarity rarely arrives in advance. This is such a powerful thought because it completely shatters our modern instincts, doesn't it? I mean, we're taught to gather all the facts, make the perfect spreadsheets, and wait for everything to make perfect sense before we make a move. But the masters recognized centuries ago that this approach is fundamentally broken. You literally cannot think your way into clarity.
Clarity rarely arrives in advance. Wow, let's just sit with that for a second. We almost always assume clarity is the prerequisite for action. It's the green light, the starting gun. But actually, scratch that, it's not. If you demand clarity before you start, you're demanding something that the universe simply doesn't hand out up front. This one single realization, it can literally save you from a lifetime of being stuck at the starting line, waiting for a signal that is frankly never going to come.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that when you're faced with the unknown, there are basically two completely different paths you can take. First, you've got the seeker. The seeker is the one who waits for full clarity. And what does this approach actually produce? Well, predictably, it produces decades of waiting. It's kind of a wryly humorous, almost tragic reality. You wait for the answer, and all you get is older. But conversely, you have the seer. The seer does the exact opposite. They act before clarity is fully arrived. And instead of just producing more waiting, they produce something infinitely more valuable. They produce data.
So here's the absolute game changer. We need a totally new definition of what we're actually looking for. We've got to stop chasing this mystical, abstract feeling of knowing and reframe the whole shebang. What you actually need is data. Data is the tangible information, the real-world feedback that is only produced by taking action before clarity has fully arrived. You don't wait for a feeling. You actively manufacture the hard evidence through physical movement. The seer understands that the only way to figure out if a path is right is to actually take a few steps down it and see what happens. The feedback itself is the clarity.
Let's see how this builds into a highly reliable, actionable formula. Step 1. Act without full clarity. Yeah, it feels uncomfortable, but it is absolutely mandatory. Step 2. That action inevitably produces data. You start to learn what works, what doesn't, how it feels, and what obstacles actually exist out there in the real world. Step 3. Only then do you achieve clarity. This brilliantly illustrates that action is absolutely not the end result of clarity. No way. Action is the architect of it. Action is the actual creator of the clarity you've been desperately waiting for all this time. And this sequence isn't just some neat philosophical trick from the Sufi masters. It's practically hardwired into our DNA. This is our human blueprint. We are inherently designed to interact with our environment, gather feedback, and adjust on the fly. We're literally built to learn by doing. And to help you execute this massive mindset shift, going from the stagnant seeker to the active seer, there is a specific, actionable framework designed to help you stop waiting and start generating that vital data today.
So to put this blueprint to work in your own life, keep these key takeaways in mind. First, you've got to fundamentally acknowledge that clarity is just not going to arrive first. Period. Stop expecting it to. Second, make the conscious choice to act like the seer. Prioritize generating data through immediate action over waiting around for certainty. And finally, if you've been waiting for clarity that hasn't arrived, well, you're exactly the kind of person this is for. Comment the word engine right now to get the companion workbook. It's an incredible tool built specifically to help you implement this human blueprint.
So I want to leave you with one final, absolutely crucial question.
What data will your next action produce? Don't ask yourself if you're completely ready. Don't ask yourself if the path ahead is perfectly illuminated, because it's not. Just ask yourself what small, imperfect action you can take right this very minute to generate a tiny piece of real-world feedback. Stop being the seeker who waits for decades. Become the seer. Take the step, generate the data, and let your action build your clarity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and man, I absolutely cannot wait to see what you build.